just started listening to the Grenfell Inquiry podcast, and what remedies are there currently in Australia that would deal with that today, and what are the changes that we can expect to see in the next couple of years?
Well, I guess the most specific provisions we've got are what's in the Queensland laws, and I believe you'll be hearing from the QBCC as part of this session, which is fantastic, on an update. They have got the most specific laws around obligations along the supply chain, and they've got enforcement powers that match those. But beyond that, there is our consumer laws, and there's certainly argument that this sort of conduct would be in breach of those laws, and therefore your consumer bodies would have some enforcement power if that sort of thing occurred. In the UK, and I don't have the answer for Australia, but part of what they talk about in the podcast is what kind of criminal actions might be taken against some of these product manufacturers in relation to these issues. And so there is an ongoing investigation over there around potential prosecutions, and so they're sort of definitely in the frame, and if people expect to see and hope to see as a level of accountability for what's happened in Grenfell.
Not all bad news. So home renovations could perform quite well for a couple of reasons. The main reason is the age profile of the houses. I'll show it to you here. This chart is giving us an idea of how many homes are in the 30 to 35 year age group. We have identified in the past that home renovations work tends to be most strongly sort of dictated by the number of detached houses in a 30 to 35 year age profile. And the good news from that point of view is that because there were so many detached houses built in the late 1980s, we are now going to see a lot of those will become perfectly ripe for a new home renovation.
When we also asked the question on which type of the engineering and construction players do you think will have the largest decline in the next 10 years, we saw that especially materials distributors, but also general contractors stood out. Interestingly, a bit less correlating one question to the next question, but especially I think the two as a three value chain segments, general contractors, developers, design and engineering firms, also very prominently mentioned. The distribution space, probably very likely through to the trend to off-site construction, due to the more and more end-to-end value chain control of some of the players enabled by BIM, but also enabled by many other digital and e-commerce technologies, that a lot of the players in the industry see a large decline in these sectors.
The QBCC has also been using product-based powers whereby we can require the manufacturer, amongst other things, to fix a product that is deemed to be non-conforming. As an example of how we applied this legislation was when there was a potentially serious safety incident on a Queensland high-rise construction site last year, when an element of a building product fell from a substantial height onto the street. Fortunately, in this case, nobody was injured in the incident. It transpired that the building product design was faulty. The product was voluntarily re-engineered, which then made it a conforming product and again safe for its intended use.
We're talking about a sizable problem, and not just a problem for industry, but also a problem for government. But what we're going to present and what I'm going to talk about today is more about the opportunity. So we want to focus on, here is a large addressable market. Here is a great opportunity with a government that's willing to engage and to support the industry to bring more low emission building materials, alternatives to traditional products into the market. And that's really what we're talking about with this program.
We've been renovating this place for about 10 years now, so I'm getting pretty familiar with Michael's renovation language, the good, the bad and the crazy.
Bugger! You've got to be.
But he actually really only goes crazy for insulation.
What sort of insulation you got in your place, Lindsay? You know, in summer, so cool. Don't even have to put the aircon on. So you know, when it comes to insulation in your house, there's sort of two factors that, you know, determine how good it is. You know, so it's like, it's how thick it is, and the other is the thermal efficiency of the actual product. So, you know, if you've got those two, you get a higher R value. Yeah, it's pretty good, hey?
The video had exactly the same technical content as the previous one, except it's designed using an edutainment approach for mainstream consumers to be able to share that friend. Here's this crazy video, because actually Michael and Carleen, one of the key characters on Renovate or Rebuild, the TV show. So it gives people an excuse to share some content, but we're actually, exactly like hiding the vegetables in the food for the kids. You create entertaining content that people want to share, which gets it across social diffusion and gets it into word of mouth conversations and recommendations, but it's not just educational material.